So, dear participants in our meeting, it is really a great joy and honor for me to be able to join President von Braun, Cardinal Turkson, in welcoming you today. So let me begin by echoing the thanks that President von Braun has already expressed to all those who have made this meeting possible, those who've contributed in drawing up the program, in the various aspects of its organization. I may say several people have come up to me today and said, "Are you Sister Miriam?" So I would like to acknowledge especially Sister Miriam, who I know is very appreciated by most of the people here for her great contribution to the organization. Also to those who have contributed to funding the meeting, another very important contribution, and not least, all of you who have made the effort to be here, either in person or online. Many thanks to you all. Well, I would like to speak from the side of the Academy of Social Sciences, of course. And I would say, if we're thinking about this question, dialogue between Indigenous peoples and the science community, from that perspective, one of the first things that comes to mind is the need to strengthen the rights and voice of the communities of Indigenous peoples. This meeting is about creating a chance for this voice to enter into dialogue with scientists. We need to, for instance, work on securing land tenure rights for Indigenous peoples worldwide. Although they have lost territories to those who colonized them, they still protect many territories that are islands of biodiversity. These territories need to be legally protected, and Indigenous people need support in doing so, especially against illegal mining and timber extraction. Climate injustice affects Indigenous peoples worldwide and needs to be appropriately addressed. They have done the least to create the climate crisis, but they often suffer the most from its consequences due to their high vulnerability to extreme climate events. Funding for adaptation to climate change needs to prioritize the challenge of overcoming climate injustice against Indigenous peoples. On this point, already mentioned by President von Braun, we may note that Indigenous peoples have demanded and have won a growing space in UN processes. Both climate and biodiversity conventions have recognized the importance of engaging Indigenous peoples. There is an opportunity to expand and broaden the scope of this participation in all UN processes. Coming closer to the topic of our conference, there is a need for urgent action to slow and reverse the loss of ethno-ecological knowledge on the part of Indigenous peoples, a point that, as I say, is especially relevant to us here. Many Indigenous people are suffering rapid loss of their languages, already mentioned by President von Braun, a key medium for knowledge systems, identity, and memory, and is also their culture, and also for their culture and ethno-ecological knowledge. This is a crisis that requires attention and action by decision makers worldwide. Sustainable management of species and ecosystems offer an opportunity to bridge ethno-ecological knowledge and the sciences. The lower deforestation rates in territories of Indigenous peoples is an indicator of their role in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Most species used today have been domesticated through Indigenous knowledge systems. Modern scientific breeding built on these advances and pushed productivity to higher levels. There are still many species domesticated by Indigenous systems that could play an important role in food security and medicinal products, especially if the intellectual property rights of Indigenous peoples are respected in a fair and equitable way. Restoration of degraded landscapes can greatly benefit from a respectful collaboration between Indigenous peoples and science. This collaboration creates opportunities to improve education systems, to draw on both forms of knowledge in mutual respect and consideration. Restoration of degraded lands can create employment opportunities for the youth of Indigenous peoples and thus compensate part of the damage done to those cultures by colonialism. Engagement of youth plays an important role in slowing and eventually halting the loss of ethnological knowledge and the cultures of Indigenous peoples. Combining new science-driven technologies with ethno-ecological knowledge can play an important role in developing nature-based solutions and for confronting the many crises we face. As Pope Francis has said in Fratelli Tutti, number 220, Indigenous peoples are not opposed to progress, yet theirs is a different notion of progress, often more humanistic than the modern culture of developed peoples. So here, we want to build bridges between the perspectives and knowledge systems of diverse Indigenous peoples and the science communities, exploring new avenues for solutions to global challenges such as conflicts, environmental destruction, poverty, and inequality. We understand that diverse systems of knowledge, ways of knowing, and caring for the planet are critically relevant to our collective future. And I look forward to learning much about how we can mobilize these diverse systems for the common good during our deliberations in these days. Thank you very much.